Hello everyone and welcome to the Metra Monthly Update video. This is the Metra Monthly Update video for the month of May. As always, I'm the Chairman and CEO, Derek Boyd, and this is...
I'm the President and Secretary, Vladimir Sakala. It is 3:50 in the morning. I am exhausted as hell, so I'm probably not going to talk too much about this video. We got a couple things to cover, but it's nothing too grandiose because obviously it's only been between a 2 week span. Basically, these last 2 weeks have just been working like crazy, doing contracting work, and continuing on. The reason we're doing contracting work, if you're wondering on that, is that we did end up signing the employee agreement, as we mentioned before, with one of our tenants. And so now we're in the process of training him. Well, the only way to train him is for us to actually be out there working with him. And in our contract agreement with him as well, we're promising him housing and stuff like that. We're paying him $10 an hour while he's in the training period. We're going to bump him up to $15 an hour after he's done with training, and so on and so forth. And so far, with my experience, at least of working with him, he's very eager to learn and eager to do. He just doesn't know what he's doing. So that's honestly exactly what we wanted. I'm totally down with that. So now we've been in the process of trying to fix up his house, trying to get everything ready so we can provide it for him as housing as part of like his benefits with us. We're only requesting that he or mandating that he works at least 8 hours a week with us right now until we eventually potentially put him up on full time at 32 hours and then go from there. So that was obviously a benefit, but that's caused us to work tremendously. And speaking of working tremendously, his first day on the job almost ended in his bosses getting arrested. I'll let Derek explain this situation.
Yeah, so obviously, as he mentioned, we were working on his particular unit, which is 124. Well, at the same time, we're also looking to renovate 136, which has been, if you remember from the previous video, it had the massive water leak in it. It's basically an uninhabitable home that we had to try to get up to habitable standards. That's one of the things we've been working on. We've finally gotten movement sort of on the electric. We have an electrician that's going to be coming out there to do both 124 136s power poles to completely replace 124s and update slash just replace the pole itself but keep the meter on 136. So once we got confirmation of that, we knew that we were going to be doing the plumbing and the rest of the interior work so we can actually make it back to being a habitable position. Well, in that process, we also, if you remember, we had a kind of a quasi hold slash potential rental deal that we had with one of the other units. Is kid, being 134's child, was looking to hold a place, and that was what we did with 136. So we took the $500 that they had, or 550, I think it was, as a deposit in order to hold the property. And then from there, once we got it up to habitable standards, they can go ahead and move in, take over it, and then continue to start living in it as a standard lease. Well, the problem is that, as you know, that the house itself, it wasn't habitable. We told them they could at least use it for storage at the moment because we can't actually give them a home to live in. And they also had two dogs that they were going to be putting out in the backyard, so we told them they can go do that as well. However, the problem is that once we got out there and we found out that the massive water bill happened, and we figured out that their particular unit was the one that was the water was on, because when the water bill, let me rephrase it, when the water first became a problem back in December, January of this year, we had to cut and replace a bunch of pipes all throughout the park. And in that particular unit, because we knew it wasn't habitable anytime soon, we just put a shut-off valve on it and shut it off. Well, at some point in time between whenever these people were temporarily taking over it, we got the water bill, the shut-off valve was partially turned. It wasn't all the way on, but it was partially turned, and it's just been gushing out the side the entire time, which explains why our water bill went from an average of like $1,000 to $3,500. So, with that being said, first thing we did is we capped that water off, completely shut it off, and then we were trying to get an update because we were trying to get a hold of the person, like I said, the son, that was supposed to be temporarily holding this position, and we hadn't heard anything from them, the particular person, in over a month. Because the main thing we were trying to reach out to them about is actually that water bill, trying to figure out what happened with it, why the water was even on in the first place. If they're living there, they can't be doing that, things like that. We had heard from the one of the neighbors. Once again, it was their parents who was kind of giving us an update. Now, the story doesn't exactly align, but here's basically what they told us. This was Um, about a week after we did the last video, we go out there and we are trying to figure out, once again, we cut that pipe, go ahead and shut it off. And we're also trying to figure out what this person's doing, as well as getting an idea of what we need to do to move forward to start getting the rest of the renovations done, since we've got an update from the electrician. So we were just kind of figuring out materials and general cost and whatnot for the renovation for it. While we were out there, the father, stepfather of the child came over, gave us an update, said that that person hasn't been in the park for quite a while. They
They said
themselves,
specifically over a month. They have not
yeah,
heard or seen from them in over a month.
and yeah, I was gonna say they specifically haven't heard from them in over a month. They themselves have been trying to reach out. In fact, we went the day after Mother's Day because they had mentioned, because it was on Monday, the day before was Sunday, Mother's Day, and they said that the child didn't even come for Mother's Day, which this would be her biological mother. And that the two dogs in the back, that the parents were the ones taking care of it, specifically him. He would be coming over there and feeding the dogs, and it costing him like $15 to $30 in food every week. And so that was the last time we had gotten an update. We told him that we needed to go ahead and move forward with reclaiming the property now that we've kind of gotten the confirmation that it was abandoned. And so he wanted to know about the dogs and how to handle that situation, because he was kind of the caretaker of them before. And so we said we'd give him at least a week to go ahead and get the dogs over, to put him over at his place, or to do whatever else he needed to do with them. Otherwise, we're going to have to get him to the pound or just something else. So anyways, so a week goes by. We obviously, like I said, had already started ordering materials. We got like a pressure washer, because we got to pressure wash the roof off to go do cool sealing things. Got some other parts and whatnot. We go out there to immediately start working on it.
We just signed the contracts with our new contractor.
Yep.
Literally like 3 days prior.
Yep. So the very first job we were going to start working on was that one. So we go out there. This is a week and a day later. So remember, we met with this gentleman on Monday, the day after Mother's Day. This is a week and a day later. On Tuesday, we go out there to start working, since we were waiting on that pressure washer. We go out there, we start going ahead and getting rid of, some of the materials inside the home, tearing out some things so we can figure out what we need, some plumbing and whatnot. Obviously, one of the problems is that the dogs are in the back and we can't do some of the plumbing because we got to get up underneath the house. So Vlad mentions to me, we need to go ahead and figure out this dog situation, since the neighbors, the parents aren't home or available. I tried reaching out to the tenant one more time, or the holder, whatever you want to call it, and then reaching out to the parents. Nobody answered, and I said, okay, well, I guess we're going to have to move forward calling Anderson County Animal Control. And so he does that, and so they come out. Long story short with them, basically what happened there is, initially they were coming out for the dogs. However, because of a conflicting report from one of the other tenants, was that he was seen out and about in the area recently. So they had to basically tell us that we would have to do a standard eviction, and that unless the dogs themselves don't look like they're being cared for, they can't do anything about it necessarily. What they can do is they can put up an abandonment notice on the property itself, and if they don't hear within a certain time frame, they can come by and reclaim the dogs. One of the other problems is that inside the home, the gentleman had a pet scorpion and a pet snake. Scorpion was still alive, snake was dead. Apparently it's a felony if the snake was dead and they didn't, take care of it or something.
Apparently you're required in South Carolina to bury dead animals.
Yeah.
You are literally required by law.
And so then basically there's a whole thing about that, and then that became a problem when that's why they had to put up the abandonment notice for themselves, and they were telling us that because he had been supposedly seen in the area, whether he was in the house or not, we're going to have to do an eviction, otherwise we're considered breaking and entering, and so forth and so on. And they basically said, long story short on that one, that police discretion, they chose not to arrest us because obviously we told them what the circumstances were. They generally understood. They just told us from their higher ups, based on the circumstances, that it would still be required for us to do an eviction, even though it was well within abandonment for South Carolina. So anyhow, that led into us saying, okay, we're gonna basically just wait out the cops to leave, and then we'll go right back to working. As we say that, the son pulls into the park on his moped with the mother from next door. Remember, the same person who apparently the stepfather said that they haven't seen or contacted this child in over a month, and ironically shows up the day that we're there. So anyways, so we had to talk with them. We had the police stay there and kind of got us the whole story. Story didn't really add up. He said he was trying to reach out to me, never could. None of his stuff really matched.
Wouldn't confirm it. Said to the police he was living there, told us he never was living there,
Yep.
that kind of stuff. And the mother is really what got on my nerves, considering the fact that she was literally sitting there and ranting and raving about how awful of landlords we are, how terrible it is there, how like we haven't paid the taxes, the property seized, and how this is the one that caught my attention, that they're planning to leave here soon anyway. Now, interesting thing about that.
Just so you know, that's the unit 134 who's been already behind because of supposed tax issues. And then
multiple months behind, and I'm hearing,
and they've been making very minute payments, and they
Yes.
stopped that recently. They were making about $100 payments for about three consecutive times every 2 weeks, and we haven't received any cents.
And
then this supposedly happened.
Yeah, and then I'm hearing all this, and I'm like kind of checking in on that, and I'm thinking to myself like, interesting. Okay, so the person that's multiple months behind is planning to leave with what money? Because the story that we've been told, they supposedly don't have any, and that's why they can't pay us. So I'm like, here's the thing I look out for, and this really, really pisses me off when this happens. I always look out for tenants that are going to not pay us, leave us with the bill, and go jet out somewhere else before they could potentially get an eviction put against them, lawsuit, or anything else like that. I despise that. So as soon as I heard that, I didn't waste any time. Derek and I both agreed after Derek made a couple last attempts to try to reach out to them. My favorite was that there was literally one night we were out there, we were working.
This is about a week later. We were working at 124 for the last like 5 days straight.
Yeah, I literally saw someone at that unit open the door. They saw us, and then they closed the door. I told him, he tried to knock on the door. Nobody sat there and answered.
They have never made any interaction with us whatsoever. They've never made any offers to make payments. They haven't reached out to us in any possible way, even though I've reached out to them. And what's very odd, too, is that since, to back up a little bit, we did get a little bit of a small deal worked out with the gentleman at 136, that he would basically give us the property back. He's just going to get his stuff out by that Friday. We came out on Tuesday. We gave him basically 3 days to do so. He did so. He got all of his belongings. Well, I should say, he got enough of his stuff that he left the rest of it. We still got to throw a bunch of trash out. But anyways, we got the property back. But what's been odd is, so once again, that happened on whatever Friday that was. And since then, it was a straight week of working at 124 where we had been out there and noticing one particular thing, which was that since 136 moved back over to 134, we have seen a variety of different cars, different people, and mostly younger people coming in and either visiting temporarily or picking them up and taking them somewhere. And the thing that gets us a little concerned about that is he supposedly only is on the moped and only works by driving with the moped, and we've never seen him particularly ever interact with people before, and now all of a sudden he's got just kind of like a traffic of cars coming in. It just seems very odd. And the other thing that's really concerning us is that the gentleman, so to remind you of the story, the 134 tenant, the stepfather, was the one that told us this whole story about how he's been able to interact with the child for like 40 days or so. We have not seen the stepfather there for about a week and a half to 2 weeks. Pretty much the last time we physically seen him was when he talked with us, and then the next week we had, called the police out, and then following week we've been working at the park itself, working on the home, and we have never seen him, and he is not one to shy away from communicating. He always is openly, as soon as we show up, walks out the door, starts talking to us about something. So we find it very odd that he's suddenly just not there. Plus, wrapping that into the supposed they're looking to move out and stuff, and that
she was demanding that they press charges against us, and like I was just sitting there. I kind of obviously nobody wants to go to jail, but the thing is, there was reasonable cause there. We would have fought the charges, absolutely. Because the thing is that what better source of abandonment do we have than the stepfather literally telling us they haven't heard from him in over a month?
Yeah.
And they can see out the window to the unit.
And we had asked the neighbor right next to him, the the way it's lined up is it's 136 here, 134 here, and then 130 here. We asked 130. He also has not seen the person there in about a month or so. So the literal two neighbors, one literally being family, telling us that this person has not been there in well over a month. And apparently the police got a hold of somebody else and somebody else told them otherwise.
Yeah, and
But as long as there was one person to say otherwise, it was enough for us to supposedly be breaking and entering.
yeah, which
Well, like, whatever.
whatever. If we would have gotten arrested that day, again, Derek and I have no criminal history whatsoever. We would have gotten out on something known as a PR bond, which basically is us promising that we will show up for court, on just giving our word, because we have no priors, we have no prior criminal history or anything else like that. What did they think was going to happen? The second I got out of jail, in the next 3 hours, because it was still very early in the day, so there's a chance we could have seen a judge before 5 o'clock, in the next 3 hours. Or let's say I had to spend the night. Derek had to spend the night. We had to spend 24 hours in jail. Get out the next day. What do they think was going to be the first thing I was going to sit there and do? I'll drive down to the courthouse, sue them for the water bill, file 2 evictions, and then file an additional lawsuit on top of that for the past due rent. Well, the only thing that isn't happening now is because obviously the agreement was worked out with the son. We're not going to sit there and file the lawsuit for the water bill, but we're still filing the lawsuit against the unit of 134 for back due rent as well as the eviction now, because I'm not dealing with a skirt and go.
Yep.
Where they leave us with the bill, they leave us with all these problems and issues. They sat there, they tried to have us arrested. And then just think that they're going to bounce out without any kind of issues. Because the only reason we were willing to work with them is there's a couple of reasons. Number one, we really just didn't want to deal with updating the unit and renovating it. We rather would have kept it at that cheap rental rate and just left it alone from there. Number two, the story we got is that they genuinely wanted to stay there and they did not want to leave. And so we were trying to help them out and we're trying to work with them on that. And now I don't care what the truth is. I don't care what the lie is. I've literally been lied to or told the truth. I don't know. I don't care. Either way, it's irrelevant to me, because they were either lying to the cops and telling us the truth, or they were sitting there and they were lying to us and telling them the truth. I don't care. I lost all interest.
Yeah, problem is there's way too many conflicting stories, and we're already in kind of a war path of just solving all of our problems, which is kind of what we talked about last video, is that we're really looking to just kind of stamp out all of our issues. So between now and December, we are literally doing all the physical work, all the physical labor, because one, we got to physically train 124, and you have the new tenant that's going to be our employee. But then we also are basically just putting out fires, especially fires before they become fires. And let me tell you, we're not going to say anything in particular, but there is another very obvious concerning tenant elsewhere that we are already going to be doing something with them as well. And when I say it's an obvious issue, it is a very obvious issue. We're not going to talk about it now because I'm going to forewarn them. But basically, we've already...
Oh, they should know.
Oh, they should.
Oh, they should easily know. We
They
did
should
not
definitely
hide our observation of this at
No.
all. But again, not going into it
Yeah.
right now. Gonna
We'll
leave
give
that alone. One problem at a time.
One problem, as we said, we'll give you the updates as we need to get them. But anyhow, point is we're cleaning up everything. We're cleaning up the park, cleaning our portfolio up, cleaning up all of our problems. We're just fixing a lot of issues. Because it's not so much that we couldn't deal with it and just keep doing what we're doing. It's fine. We're still making money. The issue is that obviously at some point in time, you need to put out the problems before they become bigger problems. And
it's also the broken window theory. I've talked about this with Derek many times. For those of you that don't know, there's a criminal justice study that was done where basically they went into a nice neighborhood and they purposefully trashed a house. Like they put trash and garbage out there, they broke windows and stuff like that, and the neighborhood over time started to completely deteriorate into that, versus when they started going into neighborhoods and they started fixing things up and making it look pretty, the rest of the neighborhood would also start following suit on that. So basically the theory goes is that if a place looks trashy, if it looks run down, if it looks broken, if it has bad people in it, the whole community starts becoming that, versus if you start getting rid of all that, you start renovating, you start making it nice, then you upbring it into a better level of like better quality people, better community, cleaner people, things like that.
Yeah.
And so we've been dealing with the broken window theory on the mobile home parks from day one.
Yeah, so obviously, as you know, we took over it and it was a meth-ridden hellhole, and so we've been slowly patching the windows. The problem is you can only patch so far before you got to start replacing it and actually putting in a new window, and that's pretty much where we're at now. We're in full like renovate, replace, remodel kind of things like that.
Yeah.
So we're really fixing up a lot of our issues, and we want to just get it done now. Mostly because the economy is crashing and all the deals are terrible, but also on top of that, it's because just personal things are happening in life, and it's so much easier to just go ahead and knock it out now while we have the time and the money. Let's just go do it. So,
pro tip for any tenants: trying to have your landlord arrested is never going to end well for you.
Pretty much.
That's today's pro tip.
Yeah. But anyhow, so that was the update on both. Kind of the update for our tenant now,
our new employee,
and then also the update on the remodel of 136. So to back it up, one more thing on that, like I said, we did get a quote and we have approved it and already moving forward with it. Got some financing in place for the electrician. Now I want to clarify that electrician was significantly more expensive than we had initially planned, because we had gotten some quotes prior to from some, let's just say, less reputable electricians, and they were somewhere around like $2,000 or less. So we were hoping with a more professional setup, it would be maybe like double the price. We were way off. Unfortunately, it is, even after renegotiating it down, it is going to be about $14,000-ish to get all of it. It's going to be about 13 and some change, but we'll just run up to $14,000 pretty much to just get the 2 poles in and get it set up to where they can have the electric set up for 124 and 136.
Yeah.
Which is way the hell more than we wanted. But it needs to be done. Luckily, we've talked about this before. It is effectively a one-time thing, or at least a long-term thing. So the next time that there's going to be some crazy code update will probably be some 15, 20, 30 years down the road. So it's not like it's a, we got to keep doing this every couple years.
And even if it is, we're grandfathered in at this point, because the thing is, we did it up to that point. The next person that does ever end up buying that park, unfortunately, they might potentially face those issues.
Because it's only going to be an issue, kind of like what we talked about before. Once we get the permits and they get approved, it's only going to be an issue if we have an issue for somebody to present the problem to us. So, like, okay, say another shooting happens at the park or something, and then, for whatever reason, DHEC gets involved or something else gets involved, and they're like, oh, by the way, the power is out of code. Then they would rip the permits back out, say 10 years down the road. But unless something crazy like that happens and people are just living there and there's not really an issue, the electric company and the county are both going to assume that the permit is fine, the electric is fine, everything is fine. So they're just going to keep just re-signing on new electric every time a new tenant comes in there. It doesn't become a problem until it's a problem. So that's typically the way it works. That's what he means by grandfathered. But anyhow, so with that being said, it is what it is. We're getting knocked out.
So I'll move on to the next thing. We talked about this before. This was our sad deal in the last video. So good news on that.
Way better.
Yeah.
Way less bad dude.
So the gentleman in question here, this is dealing with a property. Again, we're going to still keep anonymous because we are planning to close on it this coming Friday. So to pretty much like put a timestamp on today, well,
technically Sunday morning.
Yeah, it's technically Sunday morning. We're recording this on June 4th of 2023. Yeah. And so this coming Friday, we're going to be closing on that property, and we'll go into the full details after that. I'll show pictures of it, of the before state, what it's currently at, and so on and so forth. But the gentleman did get approved for SC stay. They paid up his entire back due mortgage, and up to August 1st is when the next payment is going to be due.
The total check was like $9,000 something dollars, because he was like $7,000 and some change behind, and then an additional 2 months forward. And then they also paid the POA fee.
Yep, they paid the POA fee in full.
$2,300.
And they also paid utilities for a little bit and stuff like that. So
we're talking, they covered pretty much everything for this man to have a clean, smooth transition out of it, which also means
he's going to get more money from us. So
Yep.
now, if you guys remember, the potential thing that we had mentioned with him is obviously if it did get approved, that we would sit there and we would pay him half of whatever is being covered additional in the mortgage on top of that. So now, technically, we should be paying him 5,800. We decided to round that up to a flat 6,000 is what we're going to be paying him at closing. And then on top of it as well, we're going to be giving him 30 days after closing. So he's literally going to get the cash up front.
Yep.
Because we're going to be secure. The title's going to literally be in a land trust name for us and stuff like that. So we're going to be secure. We're going to be fine. We don't really have to worry about like him potentially like, I guess, renegotiating on it or anything else like that, because we literally will have control of the title. So we'll give him 30 days to move out after the fact. And then we'll also offer him additional incentive pay if he can move out sooner, 150 per week. So say if he moves out in 15 days instead of that full 30, we'll throw in an extra 300 to him, stuff like that. Very nice guy. He has honestly been, for me, the most pleasant business transaction I've ever done, dealing with a general population person. I'm typically more the guy that deals with investors, so I'm more used to like, I don't want to sound snooty. I'm not trying to say like upper crust, but like not your general public is like the best way I can put it. And for general public interactions in this kind of a situation, he has been diligent. He has been on time. He has been very professional. He is always like, he's also very humble. Like he understands his situation. He's not being greedy about anything else like that. He's just happy that he's receiving help and guidance and aid like throughout this entire process, and it's been a very big pleasure to work with him. So we're really not worried about this not coming through. We'll talk about it more in the next upcoming update video, where once it's all finalized, I'll finally we'll really go into detail on the whole deal. But as of right now, that's upwards in a really good trend, and I'm happy for it. Yep. So I guess I'll let you move on to 13 Hamlet.
Yeah, so really good news and questionable news on the 13 Hammet Street purchase. So if you remember correctly, that was the brand new mobile home we just bought for $16,500. We, as pretty much mentioned, bought it and immediately advertised it for rent. We got somebody in there in about 6 days, I think. It wasn't very long. And so the new people that we got in there, they paid, it was pretty much kind of like they didn't have exactly what we needed up front, but we kind of negotiated them a little bit. So we were originally asking for $1,000 down, $700 a month. So the $1,000 would be the security deposit, or just $1,000 a month and keep it at that. Well, they were.
Oh, by the way, I have plenty of people ready to go on that $1,000
He
a
is
month.
not kidding. We got flooded. Within the first 3 days, we had people just throwing background checks at us. We literally had to stop telling people to send background checks to us, because we personally, and we hate when apartments do this, we personally hate when people waste their money for a background check, and then we cannot use them in any way because we've already got a line of other people ahead of them that are probably going to get the house first. We kind of work on a first come, first serve, like we always said. After we've gotten a few background checks, once we get a couple of them that are good, we just tell everybody else, just wait, just stop. We don't want to waste your money. Best we can do is maybe offer them another property down the road if it's something comes up. But once again, if we don't have anything anytime soon, we just tell them no, just don't. Literally, just wait. If something happens with these people, we didn't waste your money. And if something doesn't happen, then we'll reach out to you and then you can spend your money. That's just us personally. But anyhow, so we got flooded, and I mean flooded. And so basically, we originally had it, like I said, $1,000 for deposit, $700 a month, and then the other option was $1,000 a month. And the weird thing was, when Vlad says we were being flooded, it was not with the $1,000 security deposit, $700 a month, obviously, because that's what we've been telling you, is that we do not get many standard rental options. We were getting flooded with people wanting to do the $1,000 a month option. So
on a 2-bedroom, 1-bath.
On a 2-bedroom, 1-bath, technically shared lot.
All right, neighbor. It's peaceful.
Yeah, you're right next to a school, so that's the best part of it for like a small family. But anyhow, these people basically said they wanted to know if we could do instead $1,000 for the first month and then $900 each month after. And they had the most clean background, so we were like, all right, yeah, you know what, we'll do that. We already were pushing the limit with this anyhow, so it isn't a big deal. Well, not that they're exactly a problem yet. Maybe we're not sure. we're on the fence a little bit because the
We
thing
think they're lying about their employment.
yeah, so the finances might be real, the credit is probably legit. The problem is that they told us that the gentleman specifically, it's a couple, young couple, male and female. The gentleman specifically said he was a general contractor. Well, about a day or two after they moved in, they reached out to us, specifically through Vlad's personal, which really pissed him off. But
Oh yeah, never contact me
yeah,
on my personal. Something better be on fire
literally,
before
it's
you
like
call
the
me on my
extreme
personal.
emergency line. Typically, I'm the one that contacts that has to deal with interaction with customers and clients anyhow. So the fact that they were reaching out to him personally was just really odd. But anyhow, so they didn't go through our standard business line, so that way we know what the issues are. But the point is, they reached out to us within a day or two, and they were like, "Well,
After signing agreements.
after signing agreements," and we always tell everybody ahead of time, check out the property, make sure you feel good with it, you're comfortable, you don't move forward. So, anyways, so basically the issue was two things. They said there was a crack in the door, bugs were getting in, and that the AC wasn't working. And we're like, okay, odd. It was fine when we bought it from this gentleman. It's kind of odd that we just go out. So we told them, they wanted to know if there was anything they could do for one night that they could pretty much hold themselves over, because we would come out the next day or the next day, depending on when we can get out there. So we're gonna try to make it as quick as possible within a day or two. Well, they asked, because we told them before, that if there's anything that they purchase that needs to be put into the home, if they don't want us to come out there for that $50 charge, then they can just get the item and then we can reimburse them for it from there. Well, they bought two fans and used it to cool them down, and we're like, okay, not exactly what we were thinking, but sure, we can work with that, I guess. We'll assess the issue once we get down there. Well, the next day, we pretty much just moved all of our schedule around. We go down there, we immediately drive down. By the way, to let you know, it's about an hour and a half for both of us, so it's not exactly a short trip. We drive all the way down. Before we get there, we go to Lowe's, buy a brand new heating and air conditioning unit, the combo units, for like $600. Go straight to their unit, walk in, look at it, see it's not plugged in. Well, that's probably fine. Plug it in, it's not turning on. First thing that crosses my mind, well, let's check the breaker, because it might be an electrical issue with the outlet itself, because either the unit itself isn't working or the electric's not being ran to it. Go check the breaker, breaker's off, flip it, it works. 100% normal, 100% fine, no issues whatsoever. Immediately starts cooling, heat works as well, everything was fine.
Oh, that cooling works better than what I have in my tiny home.
Dude, it was insane. It was a very, very good air conditioning unit, and I knew it was because when we bought it, the dude was showing it to me. So anyways, so I was like, okay. They also had mentioned that day on the way down that the housing for a light fixture was hanging, and they wanted
Which, by the way, was 100% their fault.
Yeah, they said, can we fix that as well? And we're like, yeah, okay, sure, we'll look at it. So we go walk into the bedroom. It was a housing for a light fixture, and it basically just was two screws. I'm sure you've seen them. The housings, they have like a little turn to them for you to be able to put the screws in and then turn it so the screws are locked in place. Well, they basically just turned it and it fell out. So we just put a screw in the center hole and then a screw in the side hole so it could stay locked in place.
And the way it fell out was
turn.
because I can already tell you, there was a mattress in the room. When they were moving in the mattress literally was too big and it hit the light, it knocked it out of place, and then it fell.
It was literally a screw. We just put a screw right back into it.
All of their issues, except for the door, because at first it sounded like they were saying the door was bent.
Yeah, they said the door was loose and bugs were getting in. So we thought that there was a security issue, that the door itself either couldn't lock or that there was like a large enough gap that people could break in or something. No.
Like you could easily slip a credit card through it or something like that.
No, it was incredibly secure. The issue is towards the bottom of it, there is a section of, what's it called? A weather strip. That was pretty much either just gone or wearing away, or just they could just use another one in there. So we're talking like a $5 fix of just putting in a weather strip. And we're like, guys, we're not doing this. If you want us to come back out here, we'll do it, but we're charging you $50. And we're charging $50 for what we had to do anyways, because if you were quote unquote a general contractor, you don't even have to be a general contractor. You could just be a standard home
owner.
Not even an owner. You could just be somebody in a rental and still know how to drill in a housing. It's just a singular screw and turn on a breaker. There was actually no level of.
That is the first step of like general contracting, is to always check those things. And the thing that really got on my nerves as well is that not only am I questioning the employment heavily, again, it is what it is. We just are going to keep an eye on it. But like this is all stuff that a general contractor would have fixed in the first hour. Supposedly, they've been in that house for 2 days with no AC, and then potentially that light fixture fell or whatever else. And I don't like seeing that on move-in day, that or still moving in potentially, that my unit is being damaged beyond reasonable wear and tear by negligence. So already I'm already pretty
They
upset.
also didn't have the water on, and
Oh
he was
yeah, that's
saying,
right.
this was like the 4th day that they've been in, and we was during the weekdays, and we're like, why is the water not on? The electric's on, but the water isn't. Like, you usually do both in the same day, and they both get turned on the next day. So we're like, you're gonna need to have the water on because we don't want you being in an unsanitary situation and DHEC get called
Yeah,
out
we
there.
gave them a deadline. So again, we were out there Monday. We gave them a deadline till Friday to prove they had the water on, and on Friday
they
sat
did
there and they sent it, and I'm just like, dude, again, years of experience, this is going to be a problem.
Yeah,
I foresee a problem imminent here, and I don't like it because the thing is, this is a brand new lipstick on a pig unit, and I need to keep it that way in order to be able to still obviously make decent profit off of it for what we're planning. I need a good, clean tenant, and potentially lying about your employment, not knowing how to do basic like maintenance and care, and calling my personal cell even after I've been instructed not to do so is not a good way to do it.
But then the cherry on the cake of all of it.
I was ready to evict.
Yeah,
I literally was. I was demanding that Derek and I do an eviction.
The thing that really set him over the edge is, so once again, we get out there, we do all that stuff, takes us a grand total. I think we were there for 5 minutes.
5 minutes to fix all the problems.
And then we went and talked with the neighbors.
Except the weather strip, because a general contractor can do that themselves.
Yeah, so we went and talked with the neighbors for an hour or two just to kind of get an update from them and to keep an eye out in case they cause issues, because we hate whenever neighbors don't reach out to us because they don't know who we are or where we are and stuff, and our tenants are causing a problem for a neighborhood. We don't like that. We like to cause as little concern as possible. We like to have everything peaceful for all parties involved, ourselves, neighbors, other clients, anybody. We like everything to be efficient. So anyways, we were talking with them for a while. So we reached out to the tenants to give them an update, that we charged them for the service call, that if they want to do the weather stripping, we can take it off their bill. We'll pay for the materials, but they can put it in. So that way they don't have to worry about getting charged another service call for literally just weather stripping. It's $5. And then on top of that, we were letting them know that we reached out to the neighbors to give them our information so they can obviously let us know if they're causing any issues.
Same damn day.
Yeah, just to make sure that they kind of keep on their toes and whatnot so they don't cause any issues. And then we did voice our concern that, once again, this person is supposed to be a general contractor, and this was 5 minutes worth of work. That even if they were an incompetent general contractor, could have figured it out in an hour. But anyhow, long story short on that. So once again, previously they had reached out to Vlad's personal number instead of going to the direct line that we've literally given them numerous times and they refused to use. At some point in time later on that day, they had, once we had voiced our concerns, voiced our opinion, told everything that was happening, the gentleman's mother reaches out to Vlad's personal, which means they had to give that same number, not the correct number, Vlad's personal number, to the mother, and then, excuse my language, pitched him out for just the way we were performing, because she was like, basically, we're some greedy slumlords or something like that, because we were charging them to fix their problems, and that the home itself wasn't in the condition that we had promised them, even though they literally looked at it like 2 days prior to us signing contracts, and we didn't show anybody else after they signed the contract. They were the last people in the house. And then we gave them the house in the exact same condition because we gave them the key and we didn't have the key in the lockbox. So it's like, what are they talking about? I
was ready to evict.
So anyway, so she was
I was ready to evict.
So she was raising a storm on that and was saying that, whatever, that other people don't agree and that she's going to give us a bad review. And we're like, first off, you're not our tenant. We don't care. Secondly, if they have a problem, they're adults. They can reach out to us. Why do they have the mom reaching out to us? And thirdly, stop contacting Vlad's person. It's literally a business line. This is a business issue. Stop reaching out to people on their personal. You don't call an employee that's working at Target and call their personal line and say, hey, I need to return some merchandise. you call
Well,
Target.
the other problem is too is that Derek's in charge of obviously scheduling out maintenance, repairs, and everything else. Like Derek literally schedules everything that I do in a given day. Like I literally do not know my schedule until Derek tells me what my schedule is. So calling me to request maintenance, repairs, or scheduling is the most useless, pointless task because my answer to you is always going to be don't know, don't care, call the right number. I literally do not care because I'm not going to promise something to you and say, yep, we'll totally do it. Yep, we'll totally handle it. Yep, we'll totally recompensate you because I have no clue what prior conversations were or prior maintenance calls were or prior scheduling we have for the next upcoming week or two. I have no clue. Unless shit is on fire, do not ever contact me on my personal cell. Like, it is not that difficult. We do not pay monthly for a 1-800 number to be contacted on our personal cells. Like, it should be basic knowledge. So, needless to say, they are on super thin ice with me. Like, in fact, actually, the ice already broke, and Derek's the only reason it got patched back up.
So because they technically did perform and they followed through with our only demand and request, which was to have the water turned on by Friday, they did send us a picture of the application for it. So the only other thing from now is if they actually pay. Now they're due in about a week, so we'll find out if that's an issue or if we're gonna move forward with another eviction because they didn't pay.
Yeah, this is one of those situations. Usually, we typically like to give tenants like 30 days or whatnot before we would ever file a standard eviction because this is really going to sound honestly kind of shitty, but the thing is that you don't want to file an eviction and then during that eviction process for not an eviction for non-payment. You don't want to file an eviction for non-payment. Then during that eviction process, they sit there and they come up with the funds. Now you're out the eviction fees, you're out your time for having to drive down to that county and everything else like that. And you have to keep honoring your agreement like normal. So we typically honestly let like higher end rentals purposefully fail 2 months. Because then if they pay us that 2 months, it was worth it for us to obviously cancel out the eviction and not proceed forward. But if they don't, then it's still good for us to move forward. Right. These people have gone on such thin ice that the second that 5-day period is up, it's right
just an issue because it's already day one a problem. And it's an easily avoidable problem until we're like, we don't want to have a reoccurring series of issues. So if they do pay, then obviously they've kind of rectified the circumstances and they're less of an issue. But it's just that they've already started to become a potential issue that we want to go ahead and nip it in the bud before it becomes a bigger issue down the road. So either way, it's performing currently. It got rented very quickly. If need be, we can easily get another replacement because we have a laundry list of people that we're waiting to get into it. So it's not a huge deal. We're not dependent on this particular unit performing as it's currently standing. But it is interesting that we did get a new unit. So we bought a new asset and already got it producing literally within a week, give or take a couple days. And so once again, to kind of reiterate that whole deal, with them paying $900 a month, so they paid $1,000 for the first month, but normally $900 a month, that would be a profit of $600 because we just paid the lot rent, and so we would get a return back in like 2 and a third years if I remember correctly. So very good deal. It's very similar to 18 Eagles View. Everything's working out pretty well on that one.
So long as somebody doesn't sit there and destroy it.
Correct. So basically, as long as it performs, it is a very good asset. If it doesn't perform, it'll perform later on. It'll still be a great asset.
Oh, yeah, it's a great asset either way.
It was a great purchase. Now, with all that being said, I'm pretty confident that's all the updates.
Yep.
Correct?
I'm out.
So with that, we're just going to go swing through the budget real quick. It's not a very long budget. Nothing really changed. But, yeah. So let's go ahead and get into this. 946 did have to do the yearly renewal, so that is a little higher than normal. So normally they paid the $460, but this time they paid $960, $500 for the renewal. 641 Barnwell paid $400, 18 Eagles View paid their $700, 13 Hammet paid $1,000, 104 paid $485, even though it's supposed to do that little like new deal, which is gonna be like another $150 on top of it. Lady hasn't moved in yet. She's been repairing the house, and so she just hasn't been able to move in. I get it. So we're not really forcing her to do anything because we personally don't want to deal with those tenants, given the circumstances of their condition and health. So 108 is paying $1,300 like usual. 116 pays the $470 as always. 118 is paying their $500. 120 pays the $470. 122 is still surprisingly performing at $600. 124 is at 0 because obviously he is now going to be considered our employment, and what part of that employment is that we're giving him the housing. So technically, it's a negative, but we have that included in the fees that we would be paying out, and we haven't really paid out anything for this month, but next month we're gonna have some like employment costs for like his hourly wages, and then of course that negative on the monthly. So right now we just wrote it as a 0 because nothing really happened. Plus we had to also factor out all the costs to get it up and running, and we haven't really paid for it yet because we've been paying on credit cards, but the credit cards are due next month. So in June you're gonna see more in the cost. So with that being said, 126 is behind, give or take, as always. They're kind of catching up, they kind of fall behind, but they haven't paid this month. Supposed to be paying me next a couple of days when we get back out there. 130 has paid. They are technically catching up. That $500 that they paid for this month was actually last month, so still a month behind. 134 did not pay, as I mentioned, at all anything this entire month, even though they were paying $100 at a time. 136 was obviously the one that didn't perform, and then we got the house back. 138 still an empty lot. So total, we've gotten $7,385. If you remember, water bill came in this month. We don't pay it this month. We pay it next month. So we don't have that included in here. We did pay for a roofer this month because there's still the leak at 108. And we're going to have to deal with a potential lawsuit there. But one thing at a time. Problem there is that we have to pay another $1,450 out of pocket. So there's that fee that's not normally there. The lot rent for 18 Eagles View, $200. Divvy bill was short because we didn't really do that much on that bill. So $339.41 there. Firestone, just some car repairs, $500. Apple, $18.95. This is us getting some of the materials as well as just our reoccurring costs for
insurance, stuff like that.
Cell phones, all the other stuff. Mortgage is still $19.53 for the mobile home park, and so total for that $6,377.41, giving us a still surprisingly positive net, even though we're in preparation for going negative, of $1,007.59. So it's still performing even at a lackluster level, and giving that, well, ironically, it's only performing because of the $1,000 we just got from the new asset. If we didn't really get it, we would have made $13 this month or $7 this month.
Yep.
So that's cool, but so that means next month we're still probably going to be potentially close to profit, depending on some of the bills we pay. May just straight up be negative because that water bill's going to be due. But overall, point is from here we have some money in the bank that's just been sitting for a while, as we mentioned to you before, and we're kind of blowing through that money to get into new purchases like the one we just got, plus the golf course house, as we call it all the time, and then we're looking to do some remodels and replacement on some things. So we're pretty much going to blow through all of our cash and get all this stuff fixed.
Dude, we have to talk about the motel.
Oh, yeah.
You got to do a speed run because I'm about to crash, but I just remembered, and that is too important.
We're getting close to 5 in the morning. So, all right. So let's quickly run through this motel. So as you remember, the motel deal that we signed back in December of last year, we got it not necessarily on contract, but pretty much a verbal agreement. We were looking to close on it, supposedly by March. As we got closer to it, and the non-performance of the attorney was screwing it all up.
Joey Maxwell, attorney at law.
Attorney at law, baby. And so we were getting the standard options and whatnot. And basically what happened is it fell through because they tried to hardball us with an ultimatum at the end where they were giving us a forced cash offer, or they were backing out because they had other buyers. Well, we were like, whatever, just get another buyer. We don't really care because either we're getting our deal or we're just going to go somewhere else. We really didn't care. And so, well, they did have another offer. We were driving by. This is actually the day that we were dealing with 13 Hammet. We were coming back up.
Oh, yeah.
We were coming up back on that same road, the way the path lines up between Greenwood over to where we meet when we do our exchanges and whatnot. And we were coming up on whatever road it was that it's on at the moment, Augusta Road or something.
And we both literally saw the sign. I slammed the brakes.
And we were like, oh, well, let's go check on it, see if the manager lady's still there, or just kind of see the condition of it. And
we were just going to do a drive-by.
Yeah, pull in. First thing we notice, all lights are off, abandoned, nobody's there. We're like, what the hell? Interesting situation, because it's only been 2 months since supposedly it closed, supposedly it sold. So we went and looked in there, and first thing I noticed was a bunch of tape off of things, plastic everywhere. Looks like it was just freshly painted in some spots. And we're like, okay, it's being remodeled. So we looked up online, saw who bought it. First thing we look at is the amount that it is recorded to be sold for, and it was for $168,000.
To remind you guys, we were offering them $280
financed, And
at the end of the 11 years,
Yeah.
they would have made like $400,000
Yeah.
off of us.
And then remember they bought it for like $100,000, and it
Mhm.
was not even worth probably that much now. But then if you remember in their ultimatum when they were pretty much just saying like buy it cash or leave, they gave us a very, very kind offer of $25,000 off of our finance price that they'd be willing to sell it to us for cash. So that was $255,000 in cash, and we laughed because we even both said if we were to pay cash, we would definitely not even pay more than 200, probably around 180. So when we saw it sold for 168, we laughed so hard because we're like, that is exactly the price it's worth. And so they didn't make crap for money on that. Whatever, not our problem. So we reached out to the gentleman, and the way we did that is obviously we just looked up online, saw who bought
I
it.
did some hacker stuff.
Yeah, we hacked him, man.
To
Thanks.
get his personal address and send him a letter.
Anyways, all you do is you just look up who bought it, and you go to because it's usually bought by a company, go to the South Carolina business, look who, is the registered agent. If the registered agent isn't an attorney, it's probably the guy who bought it. So we looked at it, private home, sent an email to him, guy who bought it. So anyways, so he reaches out to me on Facebook, which conveniently, this is like perfect timing. I have not had access to my Facebook in 3 years, and literally had just got access to my Facebook like 3 days prior because they dropped support for like two-factor authentication. So I literally just got it back, and he reaches out to me and sends a friend request. I noticed the name. I was like, that is exactly the same name as the guy we sent mail to, which means that he got the mail probably that day and immediately looked me up and found me and then sent me a friend request. It had to have been that day. So anyway, the next day, that day I reached out to him on Messenger. He said we were going to schedule something out past Memorial Day weekend to talk, and then that Tuesday we talked to his business partner. They've already started the renovation projects. They've already dumped in about $125,000 into it.
So to caveat this, the property's not fully renovated right now. In fact, most of it is still, except for the front office, is still in its crap state, like what we remember. However, what the guy had done is that he had gone on ahead and paid in advance a out-of-state contracting crew to come in and do it. So when he says he actually paid that, he's already physically lost that money. It's just you don't see the results of it yet, which makes perfect sense.
Yeah, so they had another couple weeks to a month to actually get the renovations done. That was just he pays in advance, they get the materials, and then slowly work on it. So he was like, I'm already out 125 on it, plus I bought it for 160. He's like, and I already know the comps in the area because he literally looked at the same properties we looked at. And he's like, there was a $1.1 million double the unit property right down the road. So at best, this one's going to be right out the gate about $500,000. And we're like, okay, still not exactly a bad deal if you want to finance it, because now it's a already established, pretty much renovated, brand new kind of motel. We'll take over and run with it. And so they're on the fence with it. They may or may not do anything with it. The point we're bringing it up with is just, it's hilarious because the attorney bombed the deal, which was significantly more beneficial for their client, and they ultimately settled for a substantially worse deal, barely better than what they bought it. And remember, they bought it back in like 2018 or something, 2017. And this is still relatively close to the height of the real estate bubble, and they still only got a $68,000 increase in the value of it.
And here's the other thing. I don't know if we went into this before, but he had outstanding debts and liens and stuff like that. He also had to pay off, so he did not get that full amount.
Yeah, he had like a $50,000 debt outstanding because he wanted us to pay the $45,000 up front, so we could basically cover most of that. As like it was $22,000, like something for somebody else, and then our $2,500 was going to cover that $50,000 that was outstanding for like 5 years, and then that was paid off, and then he was actually going to make it spread. So if he had to pay $22,000 for some bid company, or auction company, then he had to pay the $50,000 to that other dude. That means at best the dude walked away with like $80,000, maybe 100, somewhere around that range.
I mean, technically, is I guess still profit on top of whatever they made while they were running it, to the ground by barely managing it. But either way, yeah, like Derek was saying, congratulations, Joey Maxwell, attorney at law, best attorney for real estate deals in all of Greenville. If you want to lose your money, you go to Joey Maxwell. Call Joey Maxwell at 888 I want to lose my money.
The standard attorney.
The standard attorney at law.
So anyhow, so yeah,
It's just funny because like it validates our point so
Yeah.
much. Like he literally sacked the deal. They did not have better offers. This probably was one of the ones they turned down, and then he was trying to argue it like it was better. He probably didn't even talk with his client before he only offered a $25,000 discount, like off the total price, and he literally just cost his client money all across the board. Now, the petty thing is, and I'll be honest, this would have been a petty deal. Had the guy had not dumped in the renovation amount, got in our deal, and agreed to the exact same deal, Derek and I would have literally gone to Joey Maxwell's office, asked to speak with him, thrown that down in front of him, and be like, hey, I just want to let you know ahead of time, I'm about to put you on blast. I'm about to drop a diss track on you to your clients about how much money you just cost them and how this dude is literally taking our deal because it's more profitable for him than to sit there and obviously like eat the cash that he had to pay out for it, and like just laugh at him for his failure to perform anything outside of his standard attorney regulation. So it was a little bit of a petty deal if we could have pulled it off, but it would have made me so happy. Unfortunately, the guy did start renovations, but he's actually still open to financing it to us, which is the funniest part.
So if
about
we finance a
all this.
fully renovated motel, whatever, we'll do it that way. We don't care. The thing is that we're still willing to take it because it's something we
the profit
want.
margins would be so much astronomically worse.
Yeah.
But there would still be profit margins, and the thing would be good to go for multiple years.
Yeah, realistically, value to it now.
Yeah, so realistically, we're actually very open to it. It just, even if that happened, I'd probably still find a way to sit there and make fun of him for it. But anyway, yeah, like I said, had to talk about that one. That one I was not gonna let go of, because I did not want to forget about it, but we did find that out. So, yeah, he screwed over their clients. They literally got an astronomically worse offer than if they would have taken ours, and unfortunately, it ended up in them still making a profit, but their margins and their spread.
Did they make a profit?
Maybe. Maybe. I'm going to assume,
even, if anything.
Yeah. I'm going to assume at least a little bit of profit, but the thing is, their margins were so much worse than if they just would have taken our deal and worked with us.
The thing is, they could have made more money.
Oh, absolutely. No question.
Anyhow, that pretty much wraps up this video because it's getting long and it's getting late. Last thing I want to talk about is just generally what we're doing forward. So pretty much, like you said before earlier when we were talking about the golf course house, outside of that, we'll give an update once we kind of get into it. The closing's done. If there's a move out date, when he moves out, go from that point on, how the whole deal was structured. Because that was a way more intricate deal than a standard just buy it and do something with it. Outside of that, pretty much for the next roughly 6 months from now until December, every video is going to be us just updating you on our literally physical labor progress. Because we are renovating like 5 places. We got like 6 or 7 projects we're working on. Each of them is literally physical labor required. So we're just probably going to give you some update videos, some update pictures, some just general updates as a whole, and just show you as we're getting things done. Of course, the budget will fluctuate all over the hell place because we're going to be making some money here once we get them rented, then we're going to be losing them over here because we'll be dumping that money back into renovation somewhere. So generally speaking, for about the exact next 6 months, barring some crazy circumstance like us getting the motel or some other big deal or some other smaller deals, whatever it is, pretty much mostly just doing remodels and renovations and cleaning up the park. So if you remember earlier this year, we talked about doing we kind of sat down and started talking about doing like get an investment, remodel and replace, get an investment, remodel and replace. That is literally what we're doing. A little bit out of order, but pretty much exactly what we're doing. And so unfortunately the remodel and replace, because we're trying to train our employee or the employer. I don't know why I keep doing that. While we are training our employee, we need to do the physical labor to make sure he can be independent at some point and sign off on it. So we're physically having to do the work. We're pretty much training our replacement. Once that's settled, then we can just straight transition back into investments like we normally were planning on doing. But the problem is, we've mentioned numerous times now, probably for about 1.5 years straight, we can't scale anymore because we are burdened by the anchor that is houses that need repair and remodel. Just is what it is. So we finally have an option. We're taking advantage of that option. We're running with that option. And as long as it reasonably works out, that investment that we're putting up in front into this person, if it holds true and just does at least 50% of what we need, we will be able to substantially grow our business, because now we aren't physically being tied down with having to work labor on something when our actual money-making process is doing deals. That's the goal. So 6 months, hard labor, get him on his own feet, go back to deals. That's the plan.
I'm not gonna make it.
Probably not gonna make it. That's why we're here at 5 o'clock in the morning, because we're still remodeling some stuff. So we are literally working on and off, give or take, 5 to 7 days a week, every week, like 80 to 100 hours. It's rough, and it's going to be really rough for literally 6 months, because we got a lot of stuff to get done. So with that being said, we will continue to update you, and we'll see you in the next video. All right.
Yep.
Sounds good. Peace.
Peace.